Good afternoon, this is Nick Augustine and I'm here with Bruce Isaacks and we're here to talk about criminal law.
Yes, we are.
Alright, so let's start out. Bruce, we're going to talk a little bit about who you are, why you love criminal defense law, then we'll talk about what's challenging about your part of criminal defense law and your job. Also, what's it like being a former Denton County District Attorney, and then what's it like preparing for trials and how much fun you have doing that. So let's just start off with talking a little bit about why do you love criminal defense, and why did you get into this area? When you went to law school, or when you were a little boy, did you say, this is what I'm going to do? How'd you get here?
Well, I got here when I was younger. I had this idea in my head. I wanted to be a Texas highway patrolman. My mother was smart enough to tell me that no, she didn't say you can't do that. She said, let's finish that college degree first, and then you can get promoted faster. By the time I got through college, I decided I would rather be an attorney. Thought it might be more fun to prosecute people or defend people than it would be to go out and arrest them and have them shooting at me all the time.
Right, getting shot at gets kind of tires you out.
I would think so.
Right. So you went to law school,
Yes, sir.
and did you plan, as going through, did you kind of take different courses or different paths, or did you always know you were going to go in the criminal defense direction?
Well, I always knew I wanted to either prosecute or do defense work, and I've actually ended up working on both sides for quite some period of time. So.
So tell me a little bit about how that's been an interesting back and forth.
Well, it has. My first job in criminal justice, I was an assistant district attorney for Mr. Henry Wade, who was a long-time Dallas County District Attorney. I worked for him his last term. Then I worked for the man that took office when he retired, and I worked down there till the end of December 31, 1989. And I left that job so I could run for district attorney of Denton County in 1990. And I ended up winning that election. But that was a March primary race, but the job didn't start until January 1, 1991. So that was my first period of time where I did defense work. From the election in March until I actually took office, I did criminal defense work down in Dallas County. And that was completely opposite of what I used to do for the DA's office.
Well, right. I mean, because it's a completely different. It's like when you're the prosecutor, it's almost like you always win, and if you don't win, it's maybe I didn't get that one enough. Now when you're on the other side, someone's livelihood is at stake.
Well, that's exactly right. The prosecutors, they get to go home no matter what, whether they win or lose, but the man who's on trial or the woman who's on trial, they're either going to end up in the county jail or they very well could go to prison. So you've got a lot of responsibility as a defense attorney.
Absolutely.
And I know when I first started doing that, I was, thinking, well, good Lord, I've never been in a position where I have to try to keep this guy in prison for the rest of his life. Am I up for this? So, but after the first couple of them, it's just like prosecuting. You just have to think backwards.
Think backwards.
Think in reverse.
What do you mean by that?
Where are the problems with the state's case? Did the police officer do something wrong? Did the prosecutors make a mistake when they did the indictment? Is there something wrong with the way they've got the indictment worded? Those kinds of things. It's the opposite stuff what prosecutors do.
It's a flip-flop, so that's pretty exciting. So when did you know that you wanted to run for office? Did someone ask you? Did you just know?
Well, my wife and I were living in Carrollton, Texas, in the Denton County part, even when I prosecuted in Dallas. And I'd been down there almost 7 years, and I enjoyed what I was doing, but I thought I might want to have the opportunity to make the rules about how cases were handled and how the office was ran. So I decided I'd run here.
You said, I want to do my court my way.
Yep.
Right.
I wanted to prosecute cases my way.
Right. And how long did you do that?
For 16 years. I was elected DA here for 16 years.
And then shifting gears back in private practice, how'd you feel about that?
Well, that was a big mental attitude, adjustment, because I had spent so much time, concentrating on being able to, if I had somebody who was really a bad guy, get the maximum amount of time on them in prison that I could. And here I am switching, I'm doing the opposite thing, basically trying to throw a wrench in the works and keep somebody who may actually be guilty out of trouble. So.
Yeah, it kind of shifts your head a little bit. What is the most challenging part of the job of the criminal defense lawyer? And what I would think most people might assume the answer is like losing sleep at night, because what's going to happen to these people whose lives are trusted in my care? I think that would be, so sleeping would be on my answer, but I don't know.
Well, as a defense attorney, it's one of the biggest things you have to accomplish is you have to get the client to learn that you have their best interests at heart and that they can trust you. Defendants, whether they're court appointed or whether they've come in and hired you, they tend to almost always withhold information that if they just told you, it might make a huge difference. And people don't like to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to tell you about some of the bad things they've done, so they tend to minimize what they've done. And if they would just tell us the complete truth, we might be able to achieve a really great outcome.
Right.
You know, anything you tell your defense attorney, that's confidential.
Right. They don't understand. It's almost like when you see one of these police shows and the people get pulled over and they try to minimize everything, and they get a hard time. It seems like when they tell the officer, and I know you're not going to, no one would recommend this, but just tell them everything under the sun. They seem to, I've got some weed in the back, it's just personal, and they get along much better. It's when you lie to the cops that it comes a bad time. So that seems like it transfers over to your defense attorney as well. You got to be totally honest, because you don't want to be in court and have something pop up and you look at your guy and they're like, oh, did that matter?
I'll give you an example. I was defending a guy down in Dallas one time, and we're in the middle of this trial. It's a burglary of a house, burglary habitation case. And the state calls up and they call a guy named Neiman Allen. And I leaned over to my client, Neiman Allen, you don't know who that is, the audience doesn't know who that is. Neiman Allen was the fingerprint expert for the Dallas County Sheriff's Department. So I leaned over, I said, you told me repeatedly you did not go inside that house, and yet they're calling a fingerprint witness. He goes, I didn't think they knew I was in the house. That guy lied to me repeatedly. We got hurt in that case because he lied to me about a very important fact.
Right.
So I guess the most important thing is you got him to trust you, so they will tell you the truth. And even, I don't know if I've ever had one tell me everything that's true.
Right.
It's always their benefit if they do.
It's almost like in family law, it's so different because people always, the lawyers will joke back and forth. Is it your guy or is it my lady? I mean, I don't know. They're probably both crazy. We tend to sometimes say that, but it's a different deal in criminal defense. So what do you do when that trust is broken and you're midstream? You're now questioning if you didn't tell me about this correctly, what else? It's like the whole integrity of everything the guys told me could be made up. I mean, what do you do?
You just have to shift gears. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's always in the client's best interest to tell me everything that they've done, everything that the police might know about, anything. One problem we have with these guys is they tend to talk on the jail phone.
Oh, yeah. Or in jail, because they like to brag about what they did.
Yeah, they
don't tell your cellmate.
Yeah.
Right.
I always tell them, don't talk on the jail phone because all those calls are recorded. Don't talk on the video visits with your family about what you did because those are all recorded.
Right.
And don't talk to your cellmates. We had a case up here recently where we had a confession to a murder that was not admissible because the police did not follow the right procedure. They had very little evidence in that case. We could have won that case. But my client decided he wanted to talk to his mom on the phone and basically gave his mother a confession. Well, that came in at the trial, and that man lives in the Texas prison system now.
They have no air conditioning in the summer.
Right.
It's rather hot.
He had been told not to talk to anybody about that case, and he did it, and he got convicted.
That includes your mom on the phone, too.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they don't believe you.
I don't know why they don't listen, but I mean, that's a big problem that defense attorneys have is the clients won't follow our instructions.
Do you think it's because they're afraid that if they admitting to you the severity of what happened, it's like really fessing up and admitting that they have to hear themselves say it as well?
That's the deal, that they want to minimize their involvement in it.
Yeah.
So they won't tell me stuff that would help them. Because they don't want to have to man up and say, yeah, I did this is what I did.
Wow. That is a very challenging part of the job.
It is.
All right. All right, Bruce, we talked a little bit about your work as a former Denton County District Attorney. Let's talk a little bit more in detail of why that matters, how it helps, and if I'm someone looking to hire a criminal defense lawyer, why should I care about that?
With me being the former elected district attorney for Denton County, it gives me and whoever I'm representing a tremendous advantage for several reasons. I know the criminal justice system in Denton County probably better than anybody else. I put in place a lot of the programs and plans and methods that they're still using to this very day. Most of the judges that are on the benches in Denton County worked for me at one time as assistant district attorney. They're not going to do me any special favors, but the advantage is that I know how to communicate with those judges. I know how they think. I know what they want to hear when they're making a decision about whether to put somebody in prison or whether to take a chance and put them on probation. And I think that gives me a great inside advantage.
I think that sometimes people, when they think, well, someone who was formerly on the inside is now on the outside, they think only of like the concept of the good old boy network, and they sort of are dismissive of like nod, nod, wink, wink, but it's more in depth like that you said about really understanding how the programs work. What type of programs? Can you give us a few ideas?
Well, we've got a program in Denton County called pretrial diversion. That program was instituted in this county in the early 90s when I was the DA. Back in those days, very few counties had pretrial diversion. We had actually get our state senator Jay Nelson and our state representative that was married to any at the time to file a bill in the Texas legislature and pass it that gave the Denton County District Attorney the authority to run a pretrial diversion program. Now it's very common. Almost every county has that now, but that was kind of cutting edge technology.
Can you tell the people what a pretrial diversion means?
Well, that is a deal where you take somebody who has made a mistake, they've committed a crime, they're not likely to get into trouble again, and I didn't want to, as a DA, those people that we thought we'd never see again, I didn't want to have to brand them as a felon. I didn't want to have to brand them as a criminal, because that kind of stuff follows you the rest of your life. It follows you when you're trying to lease an apartment. It follows you when you're trying to finance a house to buy.
You gotta check that box.
It follows you if you want to go to your child's, high school athletic games, that kind of problem. So what that deal is they're treated like any other probationer, and they're treated like a probationer for 12 to 18 months, and they have to follow the rules just like any other probationer, but they're not actually officially on probation. I always refer to it as double secret probation.
Double secret.
If they can follow the rules and stay out of trouble and do everything that's required of them in the contract with the district attorney, at the end of that period of time, the case is dismissed, and that defendant is immediately eligible and entitled to an expunction. An expunction is a document or a petition filed with state district court, and the judge will sign it if you've done that program because you're entitled to it, and it orders every law enforcement agency that you serve to completely erase any and all records about that incident. It's like it just never happened.
Wax on, wax off.
Exactly.
So, not everyone qualifies for that, though.
No, there are rules. In this county, you're going to be a first-time offender. There are some types of cases that they don't do pretrial diversion for. Like, driving while intoxicated, that's one of them. You can't get into the pretrial diversion program, if you have a DWI charge. You can't get into that program if you have an assault family violence charge. There are just some, things that are so bad, if they're true, that they're not going to give the opportunity to expunge you.
So, it's important to know that I see how, as a client comes in, it's like your toolkit.
Yeah, it's one of our tools.
Yeah, it's one of the tools, and the toolkit's a little more expansive, because when you've been in there setting up the programs, you know why certain people qualify for this, that, and the other. So it's a lot more than just knowing everyone. In a small town, everyone thinks that, well, I should get the guy who's friends with everybody. But it's the person with the most knowledge of how the system works that's the most effective. Yeah, knowledge and insight to how it actually works. Because, it's not like in TV and in movies. The criminal justice system is nothing like what you see in movies. We have clients all the time saying, hey, that police officer, he never read me his rights. Well, in Texas, a police officer does not have to read you your rights unless you're under arrest and they're getting ready to interrogate you. Then and only then do they have to read you your rights. That's why a lot of people seem like they confuse being in detention and cuffed as the same thing as being under arrest.
That's right. It's not the same.
Right. Exactly. When all of these things are going on and you're preparing for trial, tell us this. Is it like on TV preparing for trial? I mean, I don't know. Like, I remember watching LA Law as a kid, and preparing for trial looked like a lot of going to lunch.
Preparing for trial for me generally means I'm up here on weekends, working. Because, we've got to sit down, we've got to go to the file, we've got to re-watch the videos, figure out which lawyer in the office is going to handle which witness in the case. Stuff we don't have time to do during the week. So preparing for trial for me is, it depends on how many weekends am I going to spend on this one getting ready for it.
Right. It's a lot of work. So, when people are looking at, I suppose they're waiting for you to advise them, should we take a deal? Should we prepare for trial? Is it a fair thing to say that you're prepared to go to trial on every case?
The state has to know we're prepared to try a case if we need to. That gives us a lot more leverage or credibility when we're trying to negotiate a good outcome for our client. Of course, if we actually go to trial, the client ends up spending more money for it because you have to pay for the jury trial. There's a lot more time involved in it. We'll have like clients come in and they'll say, well, if I hire you, what can you guarantee? When, what I always tell them is I guarantee you that I will give you 100% of my very best effort. When they say, well, I'm not going to hire you unless you can guarantee I'm going to get probation, unless you can guarantee I'm going to do this. I always tell them, look, if you've got a lawyer telling you they can guarantee an outcome, you need to run from that person as fast as you can because they can't deliver on that.
Right. Why is it good to get the best criminal defense attorney you can, as opposed to the rule of thought that says on some simpler offenses, it's all sort of like the same deal everyone gets, whether they have a defense lawyer or not. The prosecutor is always going to give this kind of a standard deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that word on the street that people will say, you don't need to hire a lawyer for that. They're just going to spend money. They're just going to do this, this, this. What do you say to that?
You should always hire an attorney. If you're an individual who is accused of any kind of criminal offense, you need to hire an attorney, and you don't want to go on the cheap for that.
Right.
Whatever happens on that disposition, that is going to follow you for the rest of your life.
And one of the things that we're going to talk about in a later episode is why it's important how you're charged is so important, because that can affect things later. And
Sure.
That's not something people think. So the high volume, I know that there's some smaller firms, high volume,
Yeah.
you take a lot of cases, they're in court, for a lot of traffic tickets and things like that. When you're up against something serious, your life is on the line. And the thing is, the laws can change. And whatever.
They change
all the time.
every 2 years. The laws change. Every time the legislature meets, they pass criminal laws. They make changes. When I used to be the elected DA, I would tell some of our representatives in Austin, we don't need any new criminal laws. We have plenty of tools in the prosecutor's toolbox to take care of any situation. When we need a new law, we'll tell you what we need, and we'll come and ask you for it. And they usually say, look, I've got to run for re-election every 2 years. People care about criminal justice, so I've got to pass some criminal justice law. So tell me something we can pass that won't cause you problems.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that won't complicate things because someone. We'll talk about this in future episodes as well. But there are people who run into trouble later in their life through there's young kids who are screwing around and getting in trouble. That happens. Then there's trouble that people can get into later, and sometimes it's accidental trouble, and sometimes you're liable for something that you might not even intended to do. And so that stuff that happened way back when can be a potential problem.
Well, when anybody gets charged with a crime in the state of Texas, every prosecutor, every assistant district attorney, they're going to run a record check on that individual. And if you've been in trouble before, you're going to be treated differently. You're going to be treated more harshly than, say, a 35-year-old man who's never been in any kind of trouble.
That's right.
If you've got a track record, that track record is going to follow you, and you're going to get a worse deal.
That's right. It's always important to get the best lawyer you can find.
Exactly.
Exactly. People who want to learn more or get more information, how should they best get in touch with you?
Just call our office. We're in the phone book. We're on the internet. Just reach out to us and then schedule an appointment.
All right. Well, Bruce Isaacks, I appreciate your time. Again, this is Nick Augustine interviewing Bruce about criminal law and criminal defense here in Denton County, Texas. And we appreciate everyone who does find this video or podcast. Share it with others because you just never know who might be it's the same thing when we talk about bankruptcy, divorce, and other things. People don't advertise that they have legal problems or issues.
Right.
So that's why we say it's good to share. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. If you get in trouble, give me a call.
All right.